Welcome to Teen Topics.
We're your hosts,
Lily Brown
and Caitlin McDonnell.
Today's topic is book talk.
We'll be talking about our personal top 5 books of 2024 so far.
So how we're doing this is we're going to say our book, and then we're going to give our summary, and then we're going to give our thoughts on the book. And then if the other person has any thoughts, they can say them too. So my 5th book is The Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy by Jenny Han. Belly measures her life in the summer. Everything good, everything magical happens between the months of June and August. Winters are simply a time to count the weeks until the next summer. A place away from the beach house, away from Susanna, and most importantly, away from Jeremiah and Conrad. They are the boys They are the boys that Belly has known since her very first summer. They have been her brother figures, her crushes, and everything in between. But one summer, one wonderful and terrible summer, the more everything changes, the more it all ends up just the way it should have been all along. So this is a really good summer trilogy. I read it in summer, actually, when I was lifeguarding, which was the perfect place to read it. And I love the vibes of it. It's actually a love triangle, so if you like love triangles, you will definitely like this. My one critique is the TV show is actually a little different from the books. I read the books first and then tried to watch the TV show. I could not watch the TV show. So if you've done that, I don't think you'll like the TV show, but it definitely, I don't know. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. No, I did not read the books, but I watched the show. Funny, we're doing a book talk podcast on books. And I didn't read this book series, but I watched the show. I've heard I've heard so many different things from the books. And I was like, this did not happen in the show. So definitely be aware of that.
Yeah, and they haven't even came out with season 3 yet, right? Yeah, and so I know it happens in the 3rd season if they keep it the way that it was. So actually, you'll probably hate the 3rd season, Caitlin. I hate to break it to you.
Probably.
Are you? I'm gonna ask this. Are you Team Jeremiah or Team Conrad?
Conrad for sure.
Oh yeah, I've never been Team Jeremiah.
I'm sorry to everyone who's Jeremiah fans. I can't with them. He's like, no.
I don't know. I just like the brooding older brother. I guess I don't know. I would have gone for Conrad. So.
Oh yeah. My number 5 book is The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith. Eden was always good at being good. Starting high school didn't change who she was. What once was simple is now complex. What Eden once loved, who she once loved, she now hates. What she thought she knew to be true is now lies. Nothing makes sense anymore, and she knows she's supposed to tell someone what happened, but she can't. So she buries it instead, and she buries the way she used to be. Told in 4 parts, freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior, the provocative debut reveals the deep cuts of trauma, but it also demonstrates one young woman's strength as she navigates the disappointment and unbearable pains of adolescence, of first love and first heartbreak, of friendships broken and rebuilt, and all learning to embrace the power of survival she never knew she had hidden within her heart. So, this book did make me cry. It was a really, good book. It was very harsh on the topic, so definitely be very well aware of that. There's some trigger warnings that I would look up before reading, but it's just like a high school girl and how she copes with it. That's kind of the point of view, and all of her friendships and of course the first love. So, but it's a really good book overall, so I do recommend it. Just be well aware of all the trigger warnings and maybe crying like I did.
Yeah, I never read this book. Is it a series or a book?
It is a book. I believe. I've
never read this, but it does really sound interesting. I like how it's told in 4 parts. That's really unique of a book, and
yeah.
I think my high school experience has been so different every year that books don't really ever talk about that. My freshman year self would be wide-eyed if I told her where I am now. So I think it's really interesting that a book is explaining that. So
yeah.
My number 4 book is the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy by Stephanie Garber. For as long as she can remember, Evangeline Fox has believed in true love and happy endings until she learned the love of her life will marry another. Desperate to stop the wedding and to heal her wounded heart, Evangeline strikes a deal with the charismatic but wicked Prince of Hearts. In exchange for his help, he asks for 3 kisses to be given at the time and place of his choosing. But after Evangeline's first promised kiss, she learns that bargaining with an immortal is a dangerous game, and that the Prince of Hearts wants far more from her than she had pledged. He has plans for Evangeline, plans that will either end in the greatest happily ever after or the most exquisite tragedy. So this is actually my only fantasy on the list. It's the first fantasy I could get into after reading A Court of Thorns and Roses. My ACOTAR fans will understand that. I read A Court of Thorns and Roses literally 2 years ago, and I could not read a fantasy until I read this Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. There is some crossover from the Caraval trilogy if you read that one, but I personally think this one's better, and the second book is the best, much like A Court of Thorns and Roses. My one critique, though, is it is in third person. I can't read third person books very well, but this one, it wasn't that hard to read, but definitely like getting into it took me a little longer than usual.
I actually don't really read fantasy as much as I probably read romance books, but and I also never read ACOTAR either. I tried. I've gotten a little bit into the first book, but I just keep on putting it down because I'm not a big fantasy person. I also, with the third person thing, that kind of throws me off a little bit. Yeah. But I mean, I would like to try it out though. I think it's a really good book to try. My number 4 book is the Shatter Me series by Tahara Mafi. You can't touch me, I whisper. I'm lying is what I don't tell him. You can touch me is what I'll never tell him. But things happen when people touch me. Strange things, bad things. No one knows why Juliet's touch is fatal, but the reestablishment has plans for her. Plans to use her as a weapon, but Juliet has plans of her own. After a lifetime without freedom, she's finally discovering a strength to fight back for the very first time, and to find a future with the one boy she thought she lost forever. So this book is a dystopian book. It's a YA as well, so young adult, but it is a really well-written book, and it is really engaging as well. It can be a little bit too young sometimes, but it is a really good book. It does take a little bit to get into, as it is 11 books, so that's going to be maybe a little tough for some of you guys, but it is a really good book. There's 6 books and then 5 novellas, but overall I think it's a really good series.
I actually did read part of the series. I never finished it, which is really my bad. I just got into a little bit of a down stage where I couldn't really read very much. I would say, like, if you're not really into novellas, don't read the novellas. That's kind of like what put me out is I read the novellas, but I was just like, man, like, I just don't really like novellas, and it just, like, made me tired of the books faster. So I definitely would say skip the novellas if that's not for you.
That's crazy, because I love the novellas.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it can go either way for some people, so you just never know.
Yeah.
So my number 3 is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheardon. I don't know if that's how you say it. I'm sorry, Mia, if that's not. But when Bree Prescott arrives in the sleepy lakeside town of Pelion, Maine, she hopes against hope that this is the place where she will finally find peace. She so desperately seeks. On her first day there, her life collides with Archer Hale, an isolated man who holds a secret agony of his own, a man no one else sees. So this is a small town romance, and you'll fall in love with Archer. I'll tell you right now, I wish I had an Archer in my life. This did make me cry, and I don't usually cry at books, unless it's like really deep like this, and this book did get me a little choked up. My one critique, there's a certain scene. I can't say it because it will spoil, but if you've read this book, you know what scene I'm talking about, because it's just, there was no point to it. The author added it, and it just made me upset and mad and despise the book in a way, but I do love this book. I definitely recommend it.
Reading this, I believe I have this book. I just have not picked it up to read. I really do want to read it because it's right up my alley for books. Yeah. Like, romance book, I would love to read that. And showing that you cried, I will definitely be crying. So, yep. There's that.
It'll also make you want to move to Maine, which I never thought I would say, but I want to move to Maine because of it, so.
My number 3 book is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Most of you guys know this book, so. Lilly hasn't always had it easy, but that's never stopped her from working hard for the life she wants. She's come a long way from the small town where she grew up. She graduated from college, moved to Boston, and started her own business. and when she feels a spark with the gorgeous neurosurgeon named Ryle Kinnaird, sorry if I said that wrong, everything in Lily's life seems to be too good to be true. Ryle is assertive, stubborn, and maybe a little arrogant. He's also sensitive, brilliant, and has a total soft spot for Lily. But Ryle's complete aversion to relationships is disturbing, even as Lily finds herself becoming the exception to his life no dating rule. She can't help but wonder what made him that way in the first place. As questions about her new relationship overwhelm her, so do thoughts of Atlas Corgan, her first love, and a link to the past she left behind. He was her kindred spirit, her protector. When Atlas suddenly reappears, everything Lily has built with Ryle has threatened. So I really liked this book. I did cry. Shocker. But it was a really well-written book, and the details like really helped bring the book together. I will say there are some trigger moments, if you've read the book. So I definitely look up for those so that you're not triggered by it, and make sure it's all suitable for you. But it is a really good book, and I've heard that this book did turn into a movie recently. I have not watched the movie. I've heard it's not very, I will just say it's a lot different than the book. But I love the book, so I don't know if I'm going to like the movie because I haven't watched it yet, but I'm up to watch it to see the differences, so.
Yeah, I haven't watched the movie either. I did read this book as well. I heard that there was like a lot of details that were missed, and I felt like the book was made so well with those details. Like there's so many small things that like you don't think about until it all comes together in the end. And it was a little disappointing to me to hear that some like big details like that were missing, and their ages. Like I just don't know if I can get past the fact that Lily's not actually like, she's supposed to be like 22. I'm like, I'm sorry.
Both supposed to be young.
I'm like, Blake Lively's like, she's not old, but she's getting older, and I didn't think she was very suited for that role, but I would recommend the book. If you haven't seen either, definitely read the book. If you've only seen the movie, definitely read the book, but. So my number 2 is Happy Place by Emily Henry. Harriet and Wynne have been the perfect couple since they met in college. They go together like salt and pepper, honey and tea, lobster and rolls, except now, for reasons they're still not discussing, they don't. They broke up 5 months ago and still haven't told their best friends, which is how they find themselves sharing a bedroom at the main cottage that has been their friend group's yearly getaway for the last decade. Only this year, Harriet and Wynne are lying through their teeth while trying not to notice how desperately they still want each other. Because the cottage is for sale, and this is the last week they'll all have each other in this place. They can't stand to break their friend's heart, and so they'll play their parts. After years of being in love, how hard can it be to fake it for 1 week in front of those who know you best? So I've read all Emily Henry books, and I really love Emily Henry, but this one's definitely my top book of hers. It has that vacation summer vibes again. Really good. Another Maine book. I don't know why Maine is just really popular in my books recently, but there is the tropes of one bed and second chance romance, which are my 2 favorite. I love those tropes, and if you like those, you'll love this book too. But my one critique is it is a slow burn, so it can get hard to get into sometimes because you're like, come on, just get with each other. You know you want each other, so that's my only critique.
I do believe I do own some Emily Henry books. This book does sound really good. I have not read it, but the tropes, also good tropes that I will read. I will say slow burn. I do get really mad at slow burns. They get to me sometimes.
Yes.
So I don't know.
I get it.
So my number 2 book is All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover as well. Quinn and Graham's perfect love is threatened by their imperfect marriage. The memories, mistakes, and secrets that they have built up over the years are now tearing them apart. The one thing that could save them might also be the one thing that pushes their marriage beyond their point of repair. All Your Perfects is a profound novel about a damaged couple whose potential future hinges on promises made in the past. This is a heartbreaking thriller that asks, can a resounding love with a perfect beginning survive a lifetime between 2 imperfect people? So I really like this book as it is my number 2. How the book kind of comes together. It is, again, another book I cried on, reoccurring theme, but when a romance book shows like good moments and you cry, you know it's a good book. You know it's a good book. So I really did like it. It really shows like a good eye-opening for us teens as well.
Yeah, I agree. Like, to me, we're teenagers. Obviously, we aren't married. Me and Caitlin have been in long-term relationships, but like it's nothing compared to like marriage, obviously. And it's like it really opens your eye of how like serious problems get when you're older and how things like add up that you don't even realize are gonna add up in your future, you know?
Yeah.
It's just crazy. So my top book of 2024 so far, we don't know yet, but so far is One Summer in Savannah by Tara Shelton Harris. It's been 8 years since Sarah Lancaster has left her home in Savannah, Georgia. 8 years since her daughter Elena came into this world. Following a terrifying sexual assault that left deep emotional wounds, Sarah would do anything to forget. But when Sarah's father falls ill, she's forced to return home and face the ghosts of her past. While caring for her father and running the bookstore, Sarah's desperate to protect her curious, outgoing, genius daughter from the Weilers, the family of the man who assaulted her. Sarah thinks she can succeed. Her attacker is in prison. His identical twin brother Jacob left town years ago, and their mother, all unaware Elena exists. But she soon learns that Jacob has also just returned to Savannah to piece together the fragments of its own once great family. And when their two worlds combine with the type of force Sarah explores in her poetry and Jacob in his astrophysics, they are drawn together in unexpected ways. So, another summer book. I read a lot of books this summer, so it makes more sense why I have a lot of these. It did make me cry, which I never say. I just, like, books don't really make me cry, but this one, it did get me a little bit. The ending is so perfect. Like, a lot of people sometimes don't like it because it kind of leaves you on a cliffhanger, but in my reality, it was so perfect the way it ended. It is a deeper of a book if you obviously heard my summary. So it didn't really get into details of those deeper topics, so I didn't feel uncomfortable at all, but if you feel like you will get triggered by this, I definitely would not read this. My only critique is, like, I do wish there was a little more romance between Sarah and Jacob. They had a lot of romance, but I just felt like there needed to be that little sprinkle more of it, but it was just the perfect book overall.
Yeah, this book actually looks really good. I have not read it personally yet. As I say yet, I probably will be reading it, hopefully, if I like get out of my little book slump I'm in.
Yeah, I know, me too, girl.
But I do really like the summary, and I think I would really enjoy this book. So my top 2024 book this year, and honestly, I don't know what's going to top it at this point. It's a really good book. It's If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nowlin. So, if he had been with me, everything would have been different. Autumn and Finn used to be inseparable, but something changed, or they changed. Now they do their best to ignore each other. Autumn has her boyfriend Jamie and her close-knit group of friends, and Finn has become that boy at school that everyone wants to be around. That still doesn't stop the way Autumn feels every time she and Finn cross paths, and the growing nagging thought that maybe things could have been different. Maybe they should have been together. But come August, things will change forever, and as time passes, Autumn will be forced to confront how else life might have been different if they had never parted ways. Best book ever. Made me cry, but again, these books that make you cry are the best books you're ever going to read, and people can argue me on that, but it's really good. I pretty much loved everything about this book except for the ending. Warning, it does leave off on a cliffhanger. Mm-hmm. There is a second book. No spoilers about that because you have to read the first one to know what happens in the second. But I did really like this book a lot. I just wish that it didn't leave off the cliffhanger that it did. So
yeah, my one thing about it though is that Autumn wears tiaras throughout the entire book, and I can't take that. Like, it was just too embarrassing for me. Another thing for our St. Louis folks is that this book does take place in St. Louis, which is really, like, for me, it was really fun because I was like, oh my gosh, that's a place I know. Like, and it was actually at the high school that they went to is actually where our advisor taught for a couple years, which is also kind of funny that I recognized that. So, but definitely recommend this book as well.
It was really cool when I saw that it was like in our location, because I never see that because like there's always like those more popular like states and like towns and stuff. So I was in shock.
Thank you for joining our book talk.
Join us next time for more teen topics.